The Legion is one of Dead by Daylight's most controversial killers.
He's not an actually strong killer, he's just a fucking nuisance.
Their lengthy rework history serves evident that no one can agree on how to make them a fun, yet balanced character.
What do you mean too much?
Survivors hate them, but I hate survivors, so that's perfect how that works out. However, there are also complaints from the killer's point of view, arguing that the Legion's power is too weak to be viable.
They're just teenagers swinging knives around, and that's it. So for that, they're going to be joining their place with the clown.
There are a lot of new people here, so hi, welcome. This series is all about me, a survivor main, learning killers and documenting my experience. Combining my perspectives from the survivor and killer sides, I hope to make your experience playing this killer as fun and streamlined as possible. So without further ado, let's get into it. Their main power is Feral Frenzy. This allows you to begin sprinting for a short period of time and can fast vault over windows and pallets. If you hit a survivor in this mode, your timer will reset and you get a little faster, and you'll get Killer's Instinct on nearby survivors. If you don't know what that means, you can hear and see their heartbeats. Additionally, the survivor that you hit will be put into the deep wound state, meaning that they're injured and need to mend. If you hit another survivor, the same thing happens. They'll be deeply wounded and your timer resets. If you get 4 successful hits, the 5th survivor will be downed instantly. Your Feral Frenzy ends if you're stunned by a survivor, you hit a survivor who needs to mend if it's not your 5th hit, you swing and miss a survivor, you manually cancel it, or your timer runs out. After this, you get a little migraine and you move on with your day. During your Feral Frenzy, you unfortunately do not see pools of blood or scratch marks. But to make up for this, you see people's exact locations. Since you don't get Killer's Instinct while chasing your first survivor, be sure to activate your power when you see them and are close. Without any trails behind them, you can very easily lose them. If you don't get Killer's Instinct on anyone after hitting someone, you can try running a direction where you think other survivors are. If you don't get it immediately after that, it'll be difficult to locate survivors and hit them in time. A better bet most of the time is just cancel your frenzy and engage in a normal chase with who you originally hit. My personal mentality when I was creating a build was all about gen slowdown, but also putting survivors in a lose-lose situation. The first perk that I went with was Thanatophobia. For each injured, dying, or hooked survivor, there is a 2% penalty to repairing, sabotaging, and cleansing. However, if all 4 survivors are simultaneously injured, dying, or hooked, then you get an additional 12% penalty, adding up to 20% slowdown. So Thanatophobia was the victim of a severe nerf and now is an all or nothing perk. Since it's extremely valuable when everyone's injured, but becomes so much weaker when someone heals or dies, many argue that Dying Light is a superior slowdown, and I agree, so I said why not both? As long as the obsession is alive, every time you hook a survivor that's not the obsession, you gain a token that inflicts every non-obsession survivor with a 3% penalty to repairing, healing, and sabotaging. You can earn up to 11 tokens, meaning that you can get a maximum slowdown of 33%. The obsession is not affected by tokens, but instead heals and unhooks 33% faster, but who cares? Now, your survivors are injured and not finishing gens anytime soon. Legion can't down survivors in Feral Frenzy very quickly or easily, so you basically become an M1 killer to actually down the survivors. Now as killers, what survivor perks do we hate the most in chases? That's right, exhaustion perks. What if I told you you could just throw all those sprint bursts and dead hearts out the window? Well, now you can with this extremely underrated perk, Blood Echo. Whenever you hook a survivor, all other injured survivors suffer from the hemorrhage and exhaust status effects for 45 seconds. And you can use every 60 seconds. This perk is especially great if survivors run at all because then that 45-second timer gets paused. Now you may be thinking, all those perks only work when survivors are injured. Won't they just heal to make you lose all your perk value? And to that, I say yeah, they will. Those fools. All these perks will inevitably make them want to heal, and we're prepared for that. My final perk in my build is Nurse's Calling. You can see everyone healing who's 48 meters away or closer. Now let's do some math. It takes 12 seconds to mend yourself, then it takes 16 seconds to heal yourself with a default medkit or by a teammate. By default, Feral Frenzy lasts 10 seconds, but the timer resets with each successful hit. Afterwards, there's a 20-second cooldown. So if I take the absolute longest time to hit each survivor in my frenzy, I spend 60 seconds of my time before I can do it again. However, the survivor team will lose a total of 48 seconds, plus an additional 64 seconds if they choose to heal. Now these numbers are lopsided since survivors can do actions simultaneously while I can't, but you can see that if they choose to heal, I can injure them all again much faster. For the add-ons I go with in this series, I always pick common or uncommon ones that will not affect my muscle memory for this killer. Unfortunately, the Legion doesn't really have any add-ons that fit that criteria and are still worth using, so I decided to go with first, Mischief List. This add-on extends my Feral Frenzy timer by 2 seconds and definitely let me get in some last-minute hits. Then, to give myself even more time to hit all the survivors, I put on the Friendship Bracelet, which extends the lunge duration of Feral Frenzy hits by 0.3 seconds. This is so delicious because it pretty much gives you coup de grace all the time. This also allowed me to get some hits in if I swung right when the timer ends. For common add-ons, these definitely are very strong. My strategy was to make Survivor's objective take as long as possible, hence the perk choices. You could say that it's more difficult to down Survivors as a Legion when comparing them to other killers, since your main power doesn't really allow you to do it so often, and you may feel discouraged when you've hit several Survivors but don't have many hooks. You just need to remember that if gens are getting done, you are winning in that situation. Without a time limit, as long as you hinder Survivor productivity, you will eventually catch them and win the game. Now let me talk a little bit more about Legion's 5th Frenzy hit. The most obvious and common application of this is when you hit each Survivor once and then you immediately just hit the 4th Survivor again to down them. However, if a Survivor mends while you're still in Frenzy, they are eligible to be hit again. So the insta-down with Legion is most viable with 4 Survivors, but is very possible with 3. Something about Survivors though is that most of them when they get hit will assume that you're just going to run to the next person and they're going to start mending immediately because a timer that you can run to pause stresses them out too much. So you can pretty consistently rely on Survivors staying close to the place where you hit them. Sometimes Survivors literally just stop running and mend as soon as I hit them, and sometimes I move on knowing that I can come back and get my 5th hit on them, but sometimes I just cancel Frenzy because that is just so disrespectful. Like, you're just gonna heal right in front of me, like what the hell? You need to be careful about pallets because a stun from them will snap you out of your power. Be sure to respect them as much as possible while in your Frenzy. Most of the time the Survivor will instantly drop it and you can just vault right over, or they're gonna wait and stun you. During this time, just stare into their soul. This is the same as waiting out dead hard. No one is patient enough to run out your timer and they will eventually drop at the wrong time. If the Survivor is super patient, just go for the hit, but pretty much always let the Survivor make the first move when it comes to pallets. Frenzy also has insane value outside of injuring Survivors, which many people don't immediately think of. First of all, remember, it's okay to use Frenzy when everyone's injured. You'll naturally want to down someone instead, but going back to the math, mending is non-negotiable. Survivors have to mend or they go down. So you can buy yourself some time by hitting them in this mode. Definitely don't think you can only use this power when Survivors are healthy. Frenzy is also great for map traversal. With a 20-second cooldown, don't be afraid to run away to far gens with it. And also, be sure to do a long swing rip before your timer ends for an extra boost. This also can be helpful in chases. Another example is, if I've closed the hatch and need to check both exit gates, this is also a fantastic time to utilize your Frenzy. Another good time is to use your power when you can't find a Survivor you're looking for. I had multiple instances where there were 2 Survivors left and one of them was on their death hook while the other wasn't. If I could find the one that was dead on hook, I would Frenzy to hit them and then try to find the other with Killer's Instinct. Just try to think outside the box with all the possible ways that you can use this power. So when you're in-game, remember all the elements that your power can bring: hook injuries, Killer Instinct, and fast map traversal. In 50 games, I had an average of 2.8 kills, 28 of which ended in a 4K, and my final 6 games were all 4Ks. Just a side note, most of the games where I got 1 or 0 kills were earlier ones where I was still trying to get my footing on this killer. Not trying to make excuses, there are a few games where I did lose horribly, but looking at the averages, the Legion is my best killer in this series so far. Now looking at gens, the Survivors finished an average of 3.8 gens against me. Since my slowdown perks rely on injuries and hooks, games at a slow start definitely did hurt. But I think that my kill stats greatly overshadow this. Hope you enjoyed this video. Obviously, my Legion gameplay is popular on this channel, but I do hope that you stick around for the next killer. If you'd like to influence who that killer is, be sure to vote on my community tab. Right now, it's a pretty close race between Demogorgon and Pinhead. I do a lot of research before I even begin playing for the series, so I'll wait a few more days and then get started. Thank you very much for watching.